Hey guys, welcome back to the Bliss to Abundance podcast. Today we are talking about branding. Why is it so important to brand your business in a way that it's going to attract your ideal clients? I have a really special guest I can't wait you to introduce to, an absolute expert in branding and photography, and I can't wait for you to meet her. If that sounds like fun, keep on listening. Welcome to Bliss to Abundance, the podcast for growth-minded travel entrepreneurs. All right, guys, I want to welcome Abby Grace from Abby Grace Photo. Abby, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to see you. The last time we were together, you were actually doing my brand shoot in Orlando. And for those of you who don't know, follow Abby's Instagram, which is Abby Grace Photo. And if you want to see the photos she did for my travel business, follow at Wanderlust CEO, and you can kind of see a sample of her work, which is phenomenal. She's absolutely the best at what she does. And when I was really researching for someone that could tell my story in a way that I felt was really authentic to who I am, I came across Abby on Instagram, and I kind of stalked you for about a year. We had some conversations, and then I hired you to do 2 brand shoots for us last year.
Yeah, that was so much fun. I got to see you twice in 2 weeks.
Exactly. It was fun. We did one in Austin at the Wanderlust Lodge, and then we did one at our home in Orlando, which was super fun. And we went to the parks together.
That was so fun.
Yeah, Magic Kingdom. That shoot was crazy. It was like we were running everywhere. But let me start the show by just asking you, you've had an evolution in your own business. When you work with brands, and I've worked with lots of photographers, lots of creative people, but what I really liked about your process is your whole approach to understanding how I serve my clients. Talk to us a little bit about how you work with clients in terms of telling their story, I guess would be the simplest way to say it.
Yeah, so my favorite part of brand photography is getting a firm grasp on how you, the business owner, see your business, and then understanding how your audience sees your business. And if there's a disconnect there, using your visuals to bridge that gap. And so that means not just like, what do you say that your business is? Because your brand as a sum total is a combination of what you say it is, but then how your audience perceives that. And so good brand photographs, good branding in general will bridge the gap between the brand owner's intention and your audience's perception. That's the sweet spot when you are like, when they're picking up what you're putting down, when they smell what you're stepping in, you're like, this is my brand. And people are like, yes, that jives. Because it's not just what you say it is. It's not just what you put into the world. People have to resonate with that. It has to feel true to them. And so I love the research component of branding, of hearing what you say, what you tell me Wanderlust CEO is, and then me doing my own deep dive into how your audience seems to respond to that, your existing brand presence. Does that say what you're telling me your intention for the brand is? And then if it doesn't, like, okay, great. How can we use your visuals to speak the language that you are speaking? Because visuals speak, visuals and pictures speak 60,000 times faster than text. People process it 60,000 times faster, and people will only read like 28 to 30% of what's on your website. And so it's that much more important that your photographs are telling the same story that you are also telling with your words. Your visuals need to line up with your copy. And so when that marriage happens, something really cool transforms the brand, that now it's not just a matter of I'm preaching this message and this is what my brand is, but people are beginning to repeat those terms back to you. They're starting to mirror back. Yes, you see your brand this way. I see it that way too.
Yeah, I love that. I think that makes so much sense. And we all know that. We can feel it energetically. Like when you're scrolling Instagram or Facebook and you like see that image or that video or that picture, and it's only seconds that people are like, does that resonate with me? Is this for me? Is this something I'm interested in? And you have to capture the shortest amount of attention span. And we know, we've watched marketing, my specialty is marketing and helping people grow their travel businesses, but the attention span has gone from like 15 seconds to 10. I mean, we're down to like milliseconds in order to grab someone's attention. So it's never been more important, I feel like, to kind of take, think about what you do and then showcase it in a way where it's really going to speak to your ideal clients. You don't want to speak. And the other thing people can make, I feel like a mistake they can make is just putting anything out there, and then they're attracting the wrong clients. And that can be just as devastating to a brand, or, kind of get you into a frustrating place. What would you recommend for those who are kind of just starting? You work with all different types of business owners, not just in the
Mhm.
travel industry, but I love you work with like people that do florals, other creative people. Like I've seen everything on your feed. It's really cool. But for someone who's just starting their business, maybe they're not ready for a full blown brand shoot
Mhm.
yet, but what are some important things that you want them to think about as they kind of start to develop their brand on their own?
Yeah, so I would say don't pigeonhole yourself too early. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a mistake that a lot of people make is they find a website template that they love and they're like, oh my gosh, I am so digging the like Miami hot pinks and like vibrant greens, and this feels so right to me. And like maybe this green is like one of the Pantone colors of the year. This is so perfect. And so they go with this like very identifiable, very specific brand, and then a year later they're like, I'm bored, it's time to
Mm-hmm.
rebrand, and then you end up confusing your audience. So the more important thing here is consistency. Human nature tends to equate consistency with trust. And so if you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly changing your brand identity, then what it teaches people is that you're actually kind of unstable subconsciously. Like I don't think anyone's looking at your brand being like, that's not a safe person, but because they can't predict what your next move is going to be, it all of a sudden becomes less of a safe option. So I would say if you're going to err on one side or the other and you're a new business owner, to err on the side of a little bit less specific and allow that to come to the surface. I don't know if you guys do this after Thanksgiving, but every year my dad makes turkey stock out of the leftover turkey bones, so he puts it into this huge stock pot of water and then adds water all the way to the top, boils it down, adds water again, boils it down. It takes like 8 to 10 hours, but what
Yeah.
you're left with at the end is this very pure turkey stock that's great for making soup. If you try
Mm-hmm.
to rush that process, then the water doesn't have enough time to leach flavor from the bones of the turkey, and you end up with, which is what happened this past year, disgusting turkey water that gets thrown out and used for nothing. And
Yeah.
so to tie that back to branding, like this is a process that does take time, that it's very tempting when you start your business to want to come out the gate with like, Papa, here I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen that Cindy's built this incredible, identifiable, cohesive suite of brands, and I want that too. But when you do that too early on, you don't give yourself enough time to identify what it is that you want, what it is maybe that your people identify with, and it doesn't give enough time for the flavor to leach from the bones of that turkey
Yeah.
to let it mature. And so what we want is to give it time and let that stuff rise to the surface, and that unfortunately is something that takes time.
It does take time. And I'm a big believer. I always tell our, especially our new students who've never really developed a brand before, I say you have to make your brand authentic to you. Like start with maybe what are some of your cornerstone favorite colors, because
Yes.
you don't want something that you're going to get sick of or you're going to grow out of. And to your point, like that was actually a mistake that I made really early on is I had the hot pink and I had this little cartoon Cyndi, and it was at the time I was like, this is so fun, it's so cute.
Yep.
And I thought it was what I thought other people wanted to see. It wasn't really a good reflection of who I am or what I was trying to do. And that hot pink, just I outgrew that so quick. I was like, I've never liked hot pink. Why did I put that in the logo, right? So we had to evolve out of that, and then it takes time. So you have to really ask yourself, like, who am I? What's an authentic extension of me? Because to your point of, when people see that clearly, there's like I don't know if it's like a vibration or just a vibe or what, but people trust authentic, if they really feel like you are who you say you are and they can sense that, you can't fake that either. Like I feel
No,
like
people can
you can
smell
go to
that.
some
They
yeah.
smell it from a mile away. Like, and in Simon Sinek in his book Start With Why, he talks about how, all these people, these companies espouse that one of their main values is authenticity. And he's like, what does that even mean? Like, what does
Mm-hmm.
authenticity actually mean? And what it means is that you believe and you practice what you say you're doing. Like, so
Yeah.
authenticity for me might look different than it does for someone down the road who has a completely different set of values. But that when you're preaching something that you do actually value, people can
Mm-hmm.
smell that. But when you're putting on a front of like, oh, I
Yeah.
saw that Cyndi really likes Disney, and like, I don't really care about Disney, but it seems to work for her. So like, I'll just make that one of my brand cornerstones. People can taste that because it comes
Yeah.
through in every corner. Like especially when you're building a personal brand, you're building based off of things that you hold close. And so if you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
pretend that you hold something close that you don't, like it'll either fall off or it's going to feel
Yeah.
inauthentic
And
every time you try to
also,
talk about it.
you're so right. And also, like, when you're pretending, like, or you're faking it till you make it, or you're
Mhm.
trying to put that stuff out that you think other people are going to like, but it's not really who you are and it's not really a cornerstone value, it is exhausting. Like,
Oh
can
my
you
gosh,
imagine?
yes.
Like, people are like, do you really do this? And is that really your coffee bar? I'm like, yeah, like, I don't have time to be anyone that I'm not. I,
Yeah.
I
I
have three
remember
kids. I have three businesses. I have all the things. It's like, you have to figure out what's fun, like, and ask yourself too, because, it's so funny because like I brought the coffee bar just popped in my head, but I have so many people that will DM me and go, what do you do? Like, I didn't do my seasonal coffee bar for Christmas because we were traveling so much. And people are like, are you going to do that? Like, they were waiting for me to update the coffee bar. And that has nothing to do with travel. And people follow me because helping them grow their travel business is my jam. But when they're getting to know Cyndi, when they're going to my Instagram and they're following me on Facebook, they're seeing kind of a behind the scenes of my life, and they're learning about who I am. And in that process, they're deciding if they want to do business with me, right? Because you have 20,000 followers, but I've had 2,000 clients in the last few years. So there's still 18,000 people out there that are getting to know me behind the scenes. So I better show them who I really am, because I don't want them to be surprised when they get in my program and they're like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was, right?
Yeah. And I'd say along that same line, like being careful about what it is that you do choose to show, that like we don't show every single piece of our lives. And I think that's where
Mm-hmm.
some people maybe lose grasp on what personal branding is. Personal branding doesn't mean like you have to be completely transparent about every single area of your life. Like I don't show when I'm changing my kids' diapers because that's weird. I also don't talk about the fact that I like to quilt because that doesn't resonate with my target audience. So being particular and selective about, okay, what are maybe my cornerstone values or things that I love that would then connect with my target audience. So like
Yeah.
I love quilting, but like none of my clients do,
Yeah.
but like my clients do resonate with the fact that we have two kids. We share our kids' adoption stories. I do talk about the fact that I love Disney and that I'm a runner, but like it's selected. Like I don't share
Yeah.
every piece of me. It's selectively chosen to like what matches up, what resonates with the people that I'm trying to serve.
Yeah, and I think with travel brands too, as you guys think about evolving your brands, you definitely want to showcase your travels. Like when you're out there in the world, and that's one of my very common student questions. They'll say, "Hey, I'm going on this FAM, or I'm going on this trip." FAM is a familiarization trip, is what we call that, Abby, in our industry. But
Woo,
if you're going
I
on
do
a
that. That
FAM, which
sounds
is
like
kind of like
fun.
a freebie trip, yeah, they're super fun. And then, or they're just paying for their own trip, and they're like, "Cyndi, how do I get the most out of this trip?" And I'm like, just be on the trip and document along the way, and don't overthink it. Yes, we have a set of guidelines, kind of like that. If you have time, maybe get some content for this, content for that. But it's just being in that authentic place, enjoying the vacation, and sharing that story forward. It automatically starts to position them as an expert, because people see them doing their job. They see them out there kind of in the world. So when a consumer wants to go to an African safari, who better to follow than who better to pick than someone who's been on an African safari, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that goes back to like the choosing, okay, what is it that you want to share with your people that they would resonate with? And then repeating those stories almost
Mm-hmm.
ad nauseum. Because
Yeah.
you think about like how often you log on to Instagram and you have new followers. Like, great, we're going to assume that those people have not scrolled back through the last like 3 years of content to watch every reel you've ever posted, read the caption
Mm-hmm.
on every photo. They are new to your ecosystem. And so they don't know that you just went on an African safari because it's buried. You'd have to scroll twice to see that content. So reshare that material. It's going to feel
Mm-hmm.
like, I feel like 5 to 6 years ago, there was this trendy thing of talking like, what are your 5 Instagram stories that you tell? We've gotten
Mm-hmm.
away from that, but like that is what we do. Like I have 5 to 6 stories that we tell on social media over and over and over again. I'm a brand photographer. I'm a mom of 2 adopted kiddos. That I love France. I love ballerinas. Like there's a small handful of
Yeah.
things that it's going to feel maybe to you like, oh my gosh, everyone knows this story. No,
Mm-hmm.
they don't.
They don't. Because we're inside our own brands every single day. And sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, are people getting sick of like, no, they're like, no, they want more coffee bar photos or whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
But you feel like you're doing it again and again and again. I've been in business so long now that it's like on a calendar cycle, I know exactly which ones to kind of re-update that are always fun and always kind of hit the mark. And that's true, because as you're at, like, we added 20,000 on YouTube last year, and so I recreate content because I don't have time to look back 3 years when I made a video that is still really relevant if they're wanting to kind of grow their business. I think that that's great advice for sure.
Yeah.
Talk to me
Yeah.
about continuity across social platforms. It's so funny because just last night I was like, my podcast podcast with Abby is tomorrow. I need to update my Instagram. There's one last thing that wasn't like updated with your new stuff, and I updated it last night. But talk to us about continuity. We preach this in our programs for our students, but what do you think is a good, kind of approach to that for new business owners?
So when you say continuity, do you mean like recognizability across platforms, or do you mean consistency?
Kind of consistency across the platforms. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like the worst person to ask about that because social media is something I have been battling this feeling of like, is social media at war with my values? Because it's inviting people to spend more time looking at their phones. And so I have a really hard time being consistent on social because it feels like I'm wasting people's time. And so that's something that we have been working to, like, already behind the scenes. It's only January 10th when we're recording this, but like already working to how can we become more consistent this year, because last year we got complacent. And I would say there that like coming up with some kind of rhythm. So there are so many different ways that you can use social media. I would say find the one that feels like that, number one, where your people are hanging out. So like if you're like, oh, I just really love Instagram stories, that's great for maybe familiarization content where people can get to know you and see you in the coffee bar. But we have to remember that Instagram stories expire after 24 hours and only a fraction of the people that follow you actually see those. On my best day, we have 26,000 followers. On my best days, like 2,000 people will see my stories, which is not even 10%. And so you have to remember that this like repeat, because even if you feel like you've told the story 100 times, not everybody has seen it. So find the medium where your people are actually hanging out, and then figure out some kind of repeatable system that you can use so you're not having to think from the ground up every time. I don't know why I have a huge block about Instagram Reels, and I have for like 2 years. And just recently, my on-set assistant, Denna, who was with me for both of your shoots, she was like, oh my gosh, what if you just did this? And I was like, that's a great idea. Can I hire you to do that for me? So like, we're going to like, we've the system that I'm hoping this year will work for us is she's identified a couple of stories that we can tell at every brand session. And then we're outsourcing that to get it done. But
smart.
The consistency piece of things, you're so good at this. It's been a real struggle for me. And I wish I had a magic pill to make it better.
No, well, and I get that too. And I'm glad that you're so open about that, because we hear that sometimes with our students are like, social media is just like, it's not good for my mental health. I get it. Like, and that's the thing. But what the clarification I want to make and kind of how to reframe that in your brain is, I don't want you on social media either. You're a business owner. I want you to be a creator, not a consumer. So I'm very big, like my students, they'll be in class and I'll be like, pull up your screen time from last week. How much time? And people are like, I don't have time to do this. I'm like, BS, pull up your screen time. And they're like, I've been spending 12 hours a day on social media. And, because they're scrolling mindlessly or doing all the things. I don't want that for anyone. That's not going to make you productive. In fact, I am very strict with myself, and I look at my screen time every week, and if I feel like it's getting out of whack, I put limits on my own phone like I'm a child. Like every night at 10 o'clock, it's like, I have expired this, and you literally have to do these extra steps to turn it back on if you want to. But I do that on purpose because I need those mental cues to go, if I'm logging on at night, it's because I'm consuming, I'm not creating. Whereas how a really smart approach for me is, I map all of my marketing out. We train our students how to do this, map it out for 3 months, and then we just have it on a scheduler. Like, we have a schedule for it when it goes out, but then I'm in the driver's seat and I'm a creator now and I'm not a consumer. So as a business owner, you have to make like that switch, I feel like, where it doesn't become something that is bringing your mindset down ever, because business owners don't have time for that either. So I think that's a normal evolution, Abby. So in terms of that whole
I'm like taking notes, like, be a creator, not
create,
a consumer.
Don't consume. I say that all the time in my classes. And it's so important because even with my kids, one of my sons last week said, Mommy, I saw a stat that if, us as kids, we're going to spend 14 years of our life wasting it on social media. And I'm like, oh my God, someone did the math to like what the average kid spends online. And I was like, 14 years of your life? Like, really?
Jeez.
And I was like, holy cow. But if you think about it, you only have 24 hours in a day. And if you're spending 5 to 6 hours on social media. If you do that over the time period, I mean, I can't imagine. So
Yeah.
imagine what you could accomplish if you had 14 dedicated years where all you did was try to grow a business, how successful you would be.
Mhm.
So you have to, you have to be disciplined as a business owner. I don't think that will come as a surprise to anyone listening to the podcast, but check your screen time, people. That's
Yeah.
where you're going to find your time to do a program or do the work or do what you need to do to grow your business. Now, when we
And then
talk
there's
about,
I mean oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, there's other guardrails too that you can set up. So I don't have you ever read the book Deep Work by Cal Newport?
No,
It is like my Bible for productivity, and
Oh, I
not
love
just
it.
like productivity, like get more done, squeeze more out of every hour, but like how do we focus on the right things? And
Right.
that I read that book back in 2017. I read it again every year. And in that, he talks about like the Freedom app, which you can use to set like
Mm,
it will block apps on your phone and will not refresh them unless you log out of the Freedom app. So we have
wow.
recurring blocks on the Freedom app that from five, I think it's 5 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
every night. And then from 5 p.m. on Friday to 7 a.m. on Monday, social media is blocked on my phone and I cannot access it unless I
Wow.
want to go delete or log out of the Freedom app, which I don't want to because
Right.
that's admitting weakness. But
Yeah.
like there are guardrails like that. I also like if I find myself like trying to circumvent the system, I just delete Instagram off of my phone. Like so that way I'm not going to upload it again until I need to, and I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
re-upload the app until I need to upload new content. So there are ways like just telling yourself like have more self-control, like
Mm-hmm.
that's for me that induces a lot of shame because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, Abby, you should be better at this, you should have more self-control. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
listen, if I know that at like 9 p.m. when I'm tired and I've had a glass of rosé, like that I'm just going to endlessly scroll because it's a pacifier, then why
Yes.
don't I just go ahead and take that option off the table by taking the app off of my phone, and
I
therefore
love
maybe I'll
that.
do something productive.
I love that so much. And we're filming this, guys, on January 10th. So I just came off of 3 weeks and I only logged in. I mean, admittedly, I love my Instagram, but I think about it like an art project because I really am into like doing the little blocks. But I did not log into Facebook at all. I mean, we closed down. So the Wanderlust Campus closes down. We have like a semester break. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna like, I only went on to like check a couple family and friends things, maybe 4 times logged in. And I will tell you, I read so many books. I took so many bubble baths. I had so much more time. I really engaged with my kids. And it reminded me how important it is you have to disconnect to reconnect. And I am
Mm,
so focused going into this year. I have I'm going to check out that Freedom app later because I love that
it's
idea of
amazing.
having guardrails because I think that that's smart. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's just part of that being disciplined as a business owner. And if you can do that and rededicate that time, one of the
Mhm.
apps I did download during the holidays, what was that app called? I'll share it with you guys. But it's an app where you can get kind of like the cliff notes of books. You can listen to a whole
Oh
book
yeah,
and
Blinkist.
well, actually, there's one called Headway is the one that I have. What
Okay.
was the one that you said that you have?
Blinkist.
Blinkist. Okay. So
Yeah.
I love that because you just listen to, so every morning I take 15 minutes and I like absorb a new book and like top concepts. And for me, who is like a really fast thinker, I'm really enjoying that. And then if I really like the kind of 15-minute, then I'll pick up the
Mhm.
actual book and read through it. But if you start to rededicate your time towards things that will serve your goals and serve your business, I think that that will be transformative. So
Mhm.
Abby, I want to thank you for being on the show today. This was so great. Tell everybody where they can find your information online.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been such a joy. You guys can find me at Abby Grace Photo on Instagram, or if you want to check out my website and see more of my portfolio, you can find me at abbygracephotography.com.
All right, guys, thanks for listening this week. We'll be back next week with another great topic. And Happy New Year, Abby. We'll see you guys next
Happy New Year.
time. Hang out in the green room for me. We'll chat in a second.